Here's something I want you to think about for a second. The landlord who ignored your maintenance request for 3 weeks, that same person, if you showed up as a property owner looking to buy one of their units, would answer your call on the first ring. Same person, same building, completely different conversation. And that's not a coincidence. That's a system. A system built entirely around one question. How much leverage do you have? And right now, depending on where you are financially, that answer is either working for you or against you. Let's talk about every level of this. Okay, here's the level 1, the first apartment. You're 22, 23, maybe 24. You just got your first real job. You're excited. You're looking at apartments online at midnight, sending yourself links like you're going to remember all of them by morning. And then you walk into your first real rental application process, and reality hits you immediately. The landlord or the property manager, whoever's sitting across from you, is running a calculation in their head before you even finish your sentence. Credit score, income verification, rental history, references. And if any one of those boxes doesn't check perfectly, the conversation is already over, and they just haven't told you yet. You're going to get a, "we'll be in touch," and then silence. At this level, you have zero leverage. And I want to be honest about that, because most people don't say it clearly. You need them. They don't need you. There are 20 other applications on that desk. Yours has to be perfect just to get considered. And even then, you might lose to someone whose dad co-signed. That's the reality of being a first-time renter with thin credit and a new job. The things that actually happen to you at this level, your maintenance requests go in a queue that has no timeline. Your lease has clauses that are technically legal, but definitely not in your favor. Your security deposit will find reasons to not come back to you fully. And if you push back on any of it, there's a very clear unspoken message. There are 50 people who would take this apartment without asking any questions. So what do you want to do? I'm not telling you this to make you angry. I'm telling you this because understanding the dynamic is the first step to changing it. Level 2, the established renter. A few years go by. You've paid rent on time consistently. Your credit score has moved. Your income went up. You know how to read a lease now. You know which questions to ask. You know what's negotiable and what isn't. And something subtle but real starts to shift in how you're treated. Good landlords, and they do exist, start seeing you differently at this stage. You're not a risk anymore. You're a reliable income stream. And reliable income streams get treated better than unknown risks. Simple math. Your maintenance requests still don't happen overnight, but they happen. Your landlord picks up when you call. The conversation has a different texture to it. But here's what I see happen at this level that frustrates me every time. People get comfortable. They've been in the same apartment for 3-4 years. The rent has gone up twice. Each time they sign the new lease without really pushing back because the apartment is convenient and moving is a pain and things are fine. Fine. That word again. Meanwhile, they've been building someone else's equity for 4 years straight. Every month, a portion of their rent payment is paying down the mortgage on a property they will never own. The landlord's net worth is going up. The renter's net worth, in terms of housing, is exactly where it was. This isn't a criticism. It's just the math, and the math matters. Level 3, you have savings. The conversation changes. This is the level most people don't know exists because nobody talks about it. You've been saving. You have money in a separate account. Not enough to buy yet, but enough that you show up differently in any financial conversation. And something interesting starts happening with landlords at this stage. When you go to negotiate a lease renewal and you mention, casually, confidently, that you've been looking at some properties in the area, the energy in the room shifts. Suddenly, your landlord is a little more interested in keeping you than they were before. Suddenly, maintenance requests get faster responses because losing a reliable tenant who might actually leave is a real possibility now. This is leverage. It's not a lot of leverage, but it's the first time in the renting journey where you have any at all. And the lesson here is critical. Leverage has to be real to work. You can't bluff this. You actually have to be looking at properties. You actually have to have the savings, because the moment you're called on it and you have nothing, you've lost credibility and you've lost the negotiation. Having savings doesn't just give you options. It changes how you move through every financial conversation you have, including this one. Level 4, the pre-approval letter. You got pre-approved for a mortgage. You have a number. You know what you can buy. And I want to tell you what this piece of paper actually does to the dynamic between you and every landlord you've ever dealt with. It makes renting feel temporary, and temporary situations get negotiated differently than permanent ones. You stop accepting lease terms you don't like because you know you're leaving in 12 months. You stop letting maintenance issues slide because you're not trying to keep a relationship. You're trying to get to the end of a lease in good condition. The whole energy changes when you have an exit strategy. But here's the thing about the pre-approval stage that actually matters more than any of that. You are now on the other side of the information gap. You understand how mortgages work. You understand what property taxes look like. You understand insurance. You understand what it actually costs to maintain a property. And that knowledge makes you a completely different person in any conversation about housing, including conversations with landlords who are trying to justify a rent increase to you. When your landlord says the rent is going up because costs have gone up, at this stage, you actually know which costs they're talking about and whether the number they're quoting makes sense. You're no longer a person who nods and signs. You're a person who asks specific questions. And specific questions from an informed tenant are the thing landlords least want to deal with. Level 5. You bought. You closed. You have keys. And the first thing that happens immediately, before you've even unpacked, is that you realize the landlord relationship you had for years was fundamentally lopsided in a way you couldn't fully see until now. Because now you're on the other side. You understand what a mortgage payment actually looks like versus what rent looked like. You understand that property taxes are real and they go up. You understand that when the water heater breaks, that's your problem now. Nobody is coming to fix it. You're calling the plumber, you're paying the bill. The responsibility is real and it lands on you completely. But here's what also lands on you. Equity. Every single mortgage payment you make, a portion of that is yours. It's going into your net worth, not your landlord's net worth, yours. And after years of watching money leave your account every month and build nothing, watching it build something is a feeling that's genuinely hard to describe until you experience it. The other thing that changes when you buy, and this is the part people don't talk about enough, is your relationship with the concept of housing costs long term. Your mortgage payment is fixed. Your landlord cannot raise it. The market can do whatever it wants. Your neighbors can sell for double what they paid. None of that changes your monthly number. Renters don't have that. Renters are exposed to the market every single lease renewal. Owners are insulated from it. That insulation is worth more than most people calculate when they're deciding whether to buy. Level 6, the accidental landlord. Most people who become landlords don't plan it. They bought a house, life changed, they had to move for a job, or they outgrew the space, or they could afford something bigger and didn't want to sell the first place because the market was complicated. So they rented it out. And suddenly, they're a landlord. And suddenly, they understand every single thing their landlord ever did to them. The tenant who pays 2 days late every month. The maintenance request that comes in on a Friday night. The lease renewal negotiation where the tenant pushes back on a rent increase that barely covers the actual cost increase. The 3 a.m. phone call because the heat stopped working. All of it looks completely different from the other side of that relationship. I'm not saying landlords are right when they're difficult. I'm saying the dynamic is more complicated than it looks from either side. And the people who've been both renter and owner have a perspective on this that's genuinely different from people who've only ever been one. Level 7, the property portfolio. This is the level where the conversation about landlords becomes about something much bigger than an apartment. When someone owns multiple properties, the landlord-tenant relationship becomes almost entirely systemized. There's a property management company handling calls. There's a maintenance crew on contract. There are lease renewal processes that run automatically. The individual landlord personality that made your life easy or difficult as a renter, at this level, it's largely been replaced by a system. And here's what the system optimizes for: occupancy rate, rent yield, maintenance cost per unit. These are the metrics. If you are a reliable tenant with a long history and good credit, the system will treat you well. Not because anyone made a personal decision to treat you well, but because the system values what you represent. If you're a new tenant with thin history, the system is conservative with you. Deposits are higher, terms are stricter, flexibility is lower, because the system is managing risk at scale, not making individual judgments. Understanding this is actually incredibly useful if you're renting right now, because it means the way to get better treatment from a professional landlord operation isn't to have a good relationship with a specific person. It's to have the financial profile that the system is programmed to value: credit score, income multiple, rental history, clean record. These aren't just application requirements, they're your leverage score. Build them, and the system responds differently to you. That's how it works. What actually changes everything? Here's the thing I want to leave you with, because I think it's the most important observation across all of these levels. The landlords didn't change. The buildings didn't change. The lease documents are pretty much the same at every level.
What changed at every single transition was your leverage. And your leverage came from one thing: options. When you have no options, you accept whatever terms you're given. When you have options, terms get negotiated. When you have real options, savings, pre-approval, the genuine ability to leave, the entire conversation is different. So if you're at level 1 right now, staring at a lease you don't love in an apartment that's okay, the goal isn't to find a nicer landlord. The goal is to build the options that make nicer terms available to you. Credit score up, savings account growing, market knowledge increasing, income moving. Each of those things adds leverage. And leverage, not luck, not connections, not finding the right building. Leverage is what changes how the housing market treats you. The system isn't going to change, but your position inside it can.